Very excited to have everybody joining the call today. Thank you guys.
Thanks for hosting.
Yeah. Well, guys, in the interest of time, I do thank you guys for joining us and putting up with my technical difficulties. Welcome. Um, I'm very excited to kick this off. Victor had just come up with a really incredible idea. All of the experiences that he's having in his role as a technical advisor, as well as with the Integrations Guild, um, and really. For those of you who don't know, just his history and his background in operating nodes, working with the community specifically, goes way back into the early days of New Cipher and the work lock, and of course, obviously operating and setting up nodes. I would say that's pretty much old hat to Victor. So very excited to have him on today, and of course, we wanted to keep this very very positive and informal. Learning experiences can be a little frustrating at times, so we've organized a brief agenda, and our plan is to basically kind of go through the agenda items. But at any time during the call, if you want to just go ahead and unmute mute yourself, we'll be happy to field questions. If you're more comfortable typing, I'm also going to be monitoring the chat as well. And I really just I wanted to just kind of open it up and allow you to take it away, Victor. We'll swap screens during the call, and Victor will start us off with basic steps.
All right, thank you, Nico, for the introduction. I appreciate that. How's everybody doing? Does anybody have any questions right off the bat before we get started? So the way I figured we'll do this is I'll go through the documentation and follow, and you can follow along or just watch, and I'll, rather than skip any steps, I'm gonna go through it like one by one. And yeah, so let's get started. Let me share my screen. All right. So these are like our general settings, and I already set up a VPS, so we can just launch right into setting up the operator account. So it's not recommended to reuse a operator account for the reason that if you reuse it and PRE, for example, and tBTC tried to write to the blockchain at the same time, they could override each other's transactions and cause issues that way. So that would be a bad thing. So the first thing we'll want to do is install geth. I'll go Ethereum, and I prepped the tab, have that ready to go. So I'm gonna copy the commands one by one. Okay, so I copied the first command. I'm gonna paste that.
And
And
for
Victor,
everybody
if
joining the call today, not a worry. We're going to take all of these links that Victor's presenting today, and we're going to load them into a nice handy file for everybody to follow along with.
Yeah, these are verbatim out of the docs.
so
So
Victor, if you've installed geth in the past, will this command just get the latest version and overwrite anything that a previous version that you might have installed?
yes, it should. If you have geth installed already, you probably won't need any of this. And I should point out, I wouldn't recommend running it as root. I mean, I'm doing that right now for simplicity because I don't want to type in the root password every 5 minutes. But you probably should not run the application as a root user. I would recommend setting up Docker as a rootless environment. There's a link to how to do that in the docs, but for the sake of time, I'm not going to go through that because it takes quite a while to get that to work and it's quite fiddly. So we just finished installing geth. Let me move that over here a little bit. So then we scroll down a little bit here. The next command, that's going to create the operator key store file. We'll do that. And now we'll need a strong password. I did not prep a list of passwords. So don't do this, but I'm just going to copy I'll use this as a password.
Can you load your seed phrase for me too? Just a little joke, Victor.
And Victor, do you mind saying something about the machine that you're using? So if somebody wants to use a virtual, like I've used Linode to run an Ethereum node in the past, or something that's in the cloud, is that what you're doing, or is that advisable?
Yes, for sure. So I run everything on DigitalOcean. Just I've had good experiences with them. I've used them for a number of years. My PRE and my tBTC nodes both run on DigitalOcean instances. That's what this is here too. They just seem to be just more straightforward, and they have a little bit more straightforward pricing than Amazon. You have to know the secret handshake to figure out AWS pricing, and I don't know what that secret handshake is. But it ultimately doesn't matter. Whatever you have, whatever you feel like using, that work. tBTC version 2 is quite computationally intensive and expensive. So you don't want to go with like the bottom rung. I think mine costs like between $14 and $17 or so a month. So the minimum machine requirements are listed in the docs. Yep, here's the list of what you should have: 2 CPU, 2 gigs of RAM, and a gig of persistent storage. That's really the bare minimum, but that will work. So now we have a operator account and the key store file right here. I'm gonna copy that for later.
And as far as operating system, I've used Ubuntu in the past with the Ethereum node. Is that do you have
Yep, it's
preference?
definitely recommendable. Ubuntu 20.04 is what I'm using, the long-term service version. Yeah. So it says right here to fund your operator account. I probably would wait until the end when you're ready, just to make sure you don't have to recreate your operator account, so you don't want to have to transfer ETH back and forth. Next, the network configuration. So bare minimum, probably at least enable UFW. So that should be off. Yep. I'm gonna leave that off for the sake of time. Where we at here? Okay. So let's move on to data storage. So tBTC is gonna need a number of folders. So we're gonna create those here. So like keeping things organized, I'm gonna set up a folder called keep. That way when I back things up, I can just back up the keep folder, and I'll have everything I'll need to back up in one place.
It's a really important process step, Victor. I know that makes it convenient later on when you're or looking for all your files if you take that extra step at the beginning.
For sure. So we have a folder structure set up now. And then this part here is going to copy the operator key file into the config directory. So let's go do that. So here's the file. We're going to copy that. All right. Okay. Moving on down the list so we don't get too far behind. Next thing, we're gonna need Docker. I don't believe I have Docker installed. So on Docker is kind of funny. You have to uninstall old versions to make sure you have the latest version installed. Let's do that. Unable to locate. Okay, so we don't have an old one installed. I'll just wait a few minutes.
It's a handy setup to have the multiple windows open like that. And Victor, I like that process. You kind of copy and paste a little easier.
Yeah, it's definitely easier when you use multiple monitors. You can just switch back and forth, but I think I can only share one monitor at a time. What is happening here? All right. So it's not super thrilling, but it's just a lot of copy and pasting commands and getting everything ready. Are there any questions so far while I fumble my way through this?
Yeah, it's really good to see though, because probably going to run into some of the same, challenges. It's
Yeah,
Right,
and it's
and this
real.
kind of stuff just happens, so you just gotta, um, work through it.
It's a real pleasure to see you put the process out like this, Victor, because when it's methodical, it helps to kind of backtrack, kind of isolate. Where was that misstep that I had? Um,
And sometimes there isn't a misstep, sometimes the thing just doesn't like you. So I updated the docs yesterday, the day before. The original launch script is still here. This is basically you plug this in, you fill in your information, you hit go, and it launches the Docker container. That's great. It's fast. The problem with that is it will not restart the container itself automatically if your node crashes or if your VPS reboots or anything like that. So you really want to set it up as a service, and there's different ways of doing all these kind of things, but this is the easiest way to do this. And what I like to do with this is I'll copy it and I'll put it in my like a notepad file and edit the file here rather than in the rather than live on the VPS. So operator file name. So it's just a bunch of copying and pasting. I should probably mentioned earlier the password. You don't want to use a password that contains any characters that could be ambiguous to Linux or another application like Docker. If you have a quotation mark in your password, there's a quotation mark here at the beginning of operator key and one at the end. If your password contains one, the software will interpret your password's character as the end um, of that line of code, and it will break the whole process. Um, yeah, that's why you don't want to include commas, apostrophes, quotation marks in your password. I think I left a note about that in the docs themselves.
Victor, every now and then I come across different recommendations. Is any of this letter case sensitive?
Yes,
Does that matter?
yes, it definitely matters. Um, like I just removed that username here. That's because I'm installing it as root, which, like I said, is not recommended. I'm just doing that for brevity. But yes, most things are case sensitive. That's why I oftentimes just copy and paste things. And which reminds me, your Ethereum API has got to be a WebSocket endpoint. And most of the time you can't just change HTTPS to WSS. Even if it looks similar, that will not work. So
Yeah,
let's
they're
see here.
really important places to kind of look. I know when troubleshooting these things, it's kind of nice to have some places to start.
Right. So we're just about ready.
Tim has an interesting comment. I'm going to read this out. He mentioned he uses Portainer as a
Mhm.
supervisor. This,
Um, I don't know if this will work unless he wants. So Portainer is going to require a Docker Compose file, which I never made available. Portainer is a fantastic tool if you're deploying multiple containers over and over. I decided against using Portainer because I deem that to be more of a security risk because it actually increases your attack surface because it has exposes a web interface for your VPS, which I wouldn't use because you're setting this up one time and then you just got to maintain it. So I just it's a great tool. I just wouldn't use it in this particular application unless you're spinning up multiple containers over and over. Yeah,
Makes a lot of sense, and it's exposure, like you said, a little security risk. So that's
right.
definitely valid. Yeah.
Anything you can do to decrease your attack surface is a good thing. So I think we're just about edited everything. So I'm going to, oh, before we do that, let's go over here. This is the path for most Ubuntu installations where you're going to, ugh, too much coffee, sorry.
Never enough.
So these are other services that are running on your machine already. So this is a good place to stick this one. And I like using Nano. Other people prefer more advanced editors. Nano is easy to use, never caused me any problems, but I'm also not doing highly complicated things. So that we have everything pasted in. Gonna exit and save. And now you want to test to make sure it actually works before you enable it. And let's go ahead and do that. So the service is going to run in the background, so you're not going to get any kind of console feedback, but we can find out what it's doing. And that exit with the failure code. Fantastic. What is the problem? It is not running. Okay. So we're gonna have to go something, it's not happy with something. Let's go take a look here. Yeah, so when it fails with an error code, we're just gonna have to go looking for what the problem is. And I'm suspecting it's got to do with the directory configuration. That's my guess.
It's very nice to be able to run this test like this before going live.
Yeah, if I would, it would be much easier to prep this, and then I would not have had any problems. But where's the fun in that?
Exactly. And that's where we like to find these problems together as a group, and kind of makes your personal journey a little bit easier when you're working these things out on your own. While we're running through this, I'd love to offer anybody questions. We've kind of moved through these steps pretty quickly today, and if anybody wants to unmute, or feel free to go ahead to the Hangout too, and you can type your questions right in there. I'll be happy to read them out loud.
Excuse me, maybe I missed something. Did you reload systemd daemon for it to find a new file, new server?
Which daemon?
System daemon?
Listen.
Systemd. Yeah, that's what I'm
Oh yes, yes.
what I'm using. Hmm. Yeah, this is unexpected. I wonder. Is the egg, are you on the call?
He is joining us a little bit late.
Okay, well, this is just what happens. You run into issues when you don't have everything planned out during a presentation.
Yeah, brave to do this, Victor. Thank you. It's we all experienced this at various times, and I think it's fair to show that it's not the easiest thing in the world, and every machine, every system is slightly different, so there's all kinds of configuration things that can come up, and
I've done this a million times.
Yeah, and it really adds a level of comfort to everybody that's just getting started out of the gate. I know me personally, I'm enjoying to watch the troubleshooting process. Sometimes whenever my systems fail, I usually myself just go right into freak out mode and I don't even really know how to troubleshoot. So this is really nice to watch this process. It's one of the benefits of your experience. I know that you know right where to go, and we're all going to experience different levels of difficulty when we're setting up nodes of this caliber.
Maybe let's check logs with journal CTL command. At
You know
least
what
we
it
will
might
see
be?
the error.
It is possible that I believe. Yeah, okay, so it actually did start up. So the problem is that the operator account is not as attached to a store, to a stake. And for that reason, I can't actually start my node up and have it run. But I believe that it actually will run because it deployed and the ports were opened. I think this will actually work. So what I'm gonna do real quick here.
But it shows status as up.
It will never get to that point. Because I don't have a stake attached to this, and when it doesn't detect the stake, it will literally shut down and crash. Well, it's not so much a crash; it just gets shut down, and it says here that the status was up, which makes me believe that the configuration is correct. And we can do. Yes, we can actually deploy this manually.
Got to get some skin in the game, Victor. That's the secret.
Yep. I didn't want to use my test net setup because
Yeah, that's a very valid point. You want to try to test it live, but that's actually a really nice feature of it, though. That it knows that you don't have the stake applied. So
exactly.
pretty smart.
Oh, the software was developed and it's amazing. Yeah, so I did not think that this would be an issue, but yeah, I'm pretty sure that is exactly what the problem is, that it won't start up because it does start up, but it shuts down immediately because it doesn't detect a stake. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
that's
it's just kind of
awesome stuff.
anticlimactic, but there's no way to actually make it start up and without a stake attached for it.
Just had a really nice comment from Taylor Made as well. He's enjoying the troubleshooting just as much as I am. So thank you, Victor. It's adding a level of comfort to the community. So
Yep. Yeah, I don't know if it. I guess we can go look at the Docker logs. Take a look at that. So this is what you would expect from the logs. Let's just look at the logs and see what happened. I'm gonna copy the container ID. Search container. That's because that container is not running. Okay. Yep, I did not consider that it won't start up without without an active stake, and I did not want to use a testnet configuration. So the steps you watched me go through so far is what you need to do to spin up your node, but I can't actually start the client or show you the client running because I don't have a stake that I can attach to this. Yeah, sorry, kind of anticlimactic.
real quick question I wanted to forward from John. He was curious about modest Wozniak et al. Are those nodes that are
Yes.
attempting to be connected to?
So Docker names the containers. These are the container names that are randomly assigned, and the most current one would be a running one. Modest Wozniak, where do you see that? Probably right here. Yeah, that was one of the initial ones that started up but didn't make it. Yeah. And so I guess what we could do is just to show that it does work. We can copy this as launch script. And so this is similar to the service file setup. You wouldn't need to do this. Once you have the service configured, it should just run. You won't need to use the Docker launch script. Oh, wait a second, that's not right. Made the password this thing. Kind of missing those techno tunes, Nico.
Yeah. Well, I finally got East on here. I need my musical advisor. You think Discord doesn't like you, boy. It really doesn't like me. But no, this I'm really impressed again. Like for those of us joining the call, obviously we're not on the test net, so it is really nice to be able to interface with the actual live network. But if running this on the test net were more comfortable for you, that would also be an option, right? Or Victor?
Yeah, I didn't. Yes, it is, but you need a testnet stake and testnet T, which I didn't prepare because I figured, hey, if
Yeah,
much
we've got
people
to
had
go
set up the mainnet, I should leave it like that.
test ETH now too. That's right. So in many ways, it's much more valid to do it through this method.
That reminds me. So this detach property down here disables the console output. So if I don't remove that, we're not going to see anything. So driver failed programming external connectivity. Port's already allocated. Now look at that. That's interesting. So it won't let me start the container again because the port is already in use. So I'm going to remap the port real quick. Won't really matter.
That's a smart tip. I'm sure other people might run into that issue as well with port configuration.
So here it is. The configuration does work and did work. It started up. There's the ASCII art. And like I suspected, it complains that it does not have a stake to connect to. So it's right here. If you look, operator not registered for the staking provider. Check dashboard. That's because there's no stake attached to it. And yeah, so the service does work. It just doesn't have a stake attached to it. The server will not fire up. So that was long.
easily is fixed, right? We just you would normally in this situation you would have your minimum stake
Yes.
configured through the dashboard. So yeah, very simple.
Yep. You can't spin up a node without a stake attached, and you also have to authorize the applications on your stake, which I presumed that everybody would be aware of after Sasha's fantastic presentation a week ago. But yeah, are there any questions I can answer for anybody before we adjourn?
So on that last point, Victor, we'd want to go into the dashboard and set up the stake there with the address that we're going to use, the operator address that we'll use, and then come and do this process?
Yes. So right before you execute try to start the service, I would make sure that your stake is ready and that the operator address is mapped to the stake, and then this failure here will not happen. It will just start up for you. Does it answer your question, John?
Yeah. And like with where you are now, if you did go into the dashboard now and set that up, would you be able to just restart, or would you need to redo this process?
Nope. I would just execute the service or the launch script again, and it
Okay.
will just fire up.
Cool.
Yeah.
What is that minimum stake that you have to do on the dashboard?
The minimum stake is still 40,000 T. The dashboard itself, though, let's move over to that real quick. You have to. This is what the dashboard portion looks like. You'll have to have an active stake, and on this configure apps section, you'll have to authorize tBTC and random beacon, and PRE presumably if you want to run PRE, which you should, so you get the full 15% APY that threshold offers. And so it'll take 2 transactions to authorize tBTC and random beacon on your stake. And yeah, then there's I don't know how I can without actually logging in with a wallet connecting to it, you can't use it. But there's some screenshots here in the documentation, and you can set your authorization for each of the services either to your full stake or a fraction thereof as long as it meets the minimum. And then there is the 2 transactions I mentioned. And then the operator registration right here is the part where you would map the operator address that we got that's on the screen here, that's shown here. That is what you want to map here under the start mapping button. And after you complete those steps, the node will start up and be ready to go. And you can check on the status of your node by either through the console with the curl command, or you can actually plug that into a browser. And I could have sworn I included that somewhere. Maybe I didn't. Yeah.
That is a really incredible resource, Victor. I went ahead and just copied docs.threshold.network into the chat, but boy, these tabs, I mean, it's really organized under that website. It's really easy to follow along.
Thank you, Nico. That's several weeks worth of work.
Yeah. Well, again, a lot of us will be, kind of going through these labors at our own time on our own system, in our own environment. So it is. It's really nice to have just a visual guide like this. So easy to follow along with. So that's really great work.
Yeah, thank you. But I think that is all I have for today. Sorry it wasn't as smooth as I had planned.
No,
hope
it's actually
got
really
something
good
out of
because it's realistic, right? Can I ask you a question on the monitoring? We've had a couple of these discussions on like, what does it take to monitor, and you don't want to, have your node down. I guess when it gets selected, you can get slashed. So, I guess how much time would you say that takes, and B, are there any monitoring services that you know of that are reliable for where you could get a ping if something happens with your node?
Yeah, there's countless different versions and options. Uptimerobot.com is probably going to be the cheapest and maybe easiest to configure. It's a little bit, yeah, archaic is not the right word, but it's not very sophisticated of an interface. But basically, what that would do is you would give it the endpoint, an endpoint for it to monitor, like your node's IP, um, with the metrics port, and have it watch that, and then send you a text message if it's down. I think the monitoring frequency that you would want, like every 5 minutes or less, may not be available in the free tier, and that would be like an external solution. I am in the process of configuring. I think it's called Datadog. Yeah, this right here. It costs $15 a month, so it's not the cheapest of solutions, but it's very, very well developed, and it can pull all kinds. It'll create another dashboard for you, and you can configure any kind of alert, Slack channel, SMS, push alert, anything you want. That's what I'm probably going to go use. There's, of course, the gold standard. Um, this I don't know how to pronounce the name, Nagios, but it's very, very complicated to configure, and because everything's done through text files. But one of those two is what I will use on my node personally.
I'm always biased.
u-
Think dog
I've
thing.
used a ton of monitoring solutions, and unfortunately, they all have some level of custom. This isn't generally a big thing, but you just have to make sure you're monitoring the correct stuff. One of the projects I hope to tackle in the next couple months is putting together a comprehensive monitoring solution where we can list out the things that you need to monitor and how they need to be monitored to keep your stuff safe. So as an example, like how do we detect if somebody is going to be slashed? And how can we send a notification specifically from that service rather than just checking to make sure the node is online? Because if the node is online but unresponsive, then it could pass the first test and fail the test we actually care about.
Theoretically, yes, that is correct.
Very good question, John. Appreciate that. And did we have any other questions from anybody in the audience today? Anybody I might have missed? A couple people came in sort of midway through.
I'm curious, Anton from P2P. The struggles I had is, have you guys experienced similar issues or any issues at all when you guys were setting up your nodes?
Excuse me, I missed which issues.
Yeah, did you guys experience any issues deploying nodes?
I spun up maybe like 3-5 nodes, so I hadn't met any big problems. But today I'm going to start 9 more nodes, so I can get more details today. But actually, it works fine.
Sure. Yeah, and it also depends on if you deploy one or multiple. I'm sure you guys have orchestration tools that make this a little bit easier. But yeah,
Right now, we use Terraform for spinning up virtual machines and all the infrastructure, like load balancing, disks, and so on. And then we configure everything with Ansible. So it installs all the software, makes hardening, security, and manage all the keys, and so on.
that's awesome. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, you're welcome.
We are
Yeah.
going to be. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead if you had another
I was just
question.
going to ask Anton. I see P2P listed as a staking provider. Do you work with individuals? So if there were one of us on the call or somebody else who wanted more support, could we stake through your company?
Yes, we do provide staking service, but the lowest limit is like 10 millions of TES tokens, because each stake needs additional node, so we need to maintain it and spin up and pay for the hardware.
Right.
So we have some limits.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, due to the high uptime requirements, that makes running a node very expensive. Like when you get, I'm sure Anton can speak to this, but when you're looking at 5 nines uptime, that translates to about 8 minutes of allowed downtime in a year. That kind of availability and uptime gets very expensive. And in addition to running the tBTC node, staking providers have to run the PRE node too, so the stakers can get the full 15%, and all those kind of things need to be factored in. And there's multiple ways of doing that. You can either charge a really high fee or require a higher stake, and I think that's what we're running into.
Yeah, very interesting discussion.
Yeah, that makes sense. Egg, with what you mentioned about potentially putting together something for sort of like an early warning type system, is that something you've proposed? Is there any time frame for it, or is it more in the ideation stage?
Right now, it's in the ideation stage, but if there's interest, I can definitely fast track it. The big thing for me is getting a list of the things that need to be monitored and putting that together in a basically Excel spreadsheet. So if you're using Datadog or Uptime Robot, that you know the things you need to be monitoring. Uh, Although ideally, in a perfect world for me, there would be some sort of a tool that DAO members could just employ that would, I don't know, maybe just drops a message in the Discord chat that says at so and so, check your node, or sends them a DM or sends them a text, whatever the final outcome may be. I do definitely think that would be something that would be valuable for the DAO as a whole.
Somebody had built a Twitter bot that checked the PRE node status. I don't know who that was though. Maybe they can retask that thing to watch your tBTC version 2 node as well.
Yeah, and I think the tBTC v1 they had a Telegram bot, if I recall, either Telegram or
Yeah,
I don't think
I'd
it was.
used one that would ping like every time there was a activity with one of the keeps that you were securing, like a redemption or any activity, it would ping you on Telegram, and that was super helpful.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion.
All right.
Just for the people we've got on the chat here, what would your guys' preferred method of being notified? Like, I prefer text message personally, but is it an email thing? Is it a WhatsApp, Signal, Telegram, Discord? What's the What's the preferred method of getting a notification?
SMS for me, but I could use something else if that's what someone was going with.
For me, it would be a phone call. We have Obsgenie system for managing all the alert. So, because phone call is the most reliable thing. It can wake you up even at night.
It's true. It could be any time, right? It's never know when.
Need a red phone right by your bed. Well, guys, we are coming up on the top of the hour, and just really incredible questions today. I really appreciate everyone's input. If there's anything that we might have missed or anything pops up later, please feel free to reach out to Victor or myself directly. We're going to be putting together, just kind of a short recap. And we've also got Jesse working on an incredible video for us. So keep your eyes peeled for that. We'll be posting those in Discord. And gosh, I'll turn it back over to you, Victor, for some final words. But I really wanted to just personally thank everybody. This was incredible for me, and personally, I really enjoy watching the troubleshooting. Victor, you're incredibly patient. I myself would have ripped my ponytail out. So it's just really, really incredible to watch you, take that step by step, guys, and that's really what it's all about when we're operating these nodes. So yeah, take it home, Victor. Thank you again.
Yeah.
What a great job.
Well, thank you, Nico. Thanks everybody for attending. Setting up a node is really the easier part, even if it didn't seem like it. Spinning them up is trivial for the most part. The really hard work is keeping an eye on them, maintaining the thing, making sure it runs, and keeping your funds safe so you don't get slashed. And unfortunately, these things don't go down when you want them to. If they'll go down like 1 a.m., 2 a.m. when you're dead asleep. So some sort of notification or alert service would be a good solution. And yeah, on that final note, I just want to say thanks to everybody for coming. And we'll see you guys around Discord.
Thanks, Victor. Thanks, Egg. Nico.
Thank you guys. Sorry about being
everyone.
late.
Yeah, guys. Happy
Thanks, Victor.
Friday. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Happy Friday.
Thanks,
Peace.
Victor. Thanks, Nico. This was awesome.
Thanks, guys. See you soon, East.
Happy Friday.